Hello and welcome to Autofocus. Today we're going to be driving the MG Comet, the smallest car in India for now, and it's all electric. But before we get into the details, let's give you just the basic facts. Now this is less than 3 meters long. It's a 3-door with 2 of the main doors being for the passengers, both for the front 2 passengers and for the rear 2 passengers. That again means that this is a 4-seater. The wheelbase is just about 2 meters long, and this is by far the most compact small car that we are ever going to be seeing on our roads. Now this is also been made possible because it really doesn't have a bonnet. It pretty much starts off from the A-pillar going all the way down to the front fender, and that front part literally looking, if you were to pop this open, it almost looks like a rear spoiler kind of size for the bonnet. All of that being possible because it's a fully electric vehicle with the battery pack under the floor, and this is going to be one of the most radical looking small cars on Indian roads. There is a lot of space in the cabin compared to its exterior dimensions. That said, it still is fairly tight and compact with not enough shoulder room for really big made people. This is a car that's going to be squarely focused on a very small audience that even MG admits will be its target, mostly young buyers who are either going to be driving alone or with just another passenger in the front. This is a pretty novel sort of looking car. Looks more like a pod, looks more quadricycle-ish. But the point here being that MG has completely used the ability of the platform to come up with a car that has a really small footprint, has the advantages of easy parking, maneuverability, can sit really tight in a parking spot, also weaving through traffic, all of that we saw earlier this morning. But that front look is pretty rad. You know, modern parallel LED headlamps and this LED stripe that runs across the face with a light blue garnish, and this whole body color. Of course, like I mentioned, there's a lot of personalization that can be done. Charging socket and the charging bay right here, and the entire car is really tight. As you can see, we are literally standing on a small lane, and it can pretty much be parked across this lane and it would still fit. It's only 3 meters long, and the front side itself is just that, with very little need for any space between the passenger firewall and the front edge of the car itself. So it's when you step to the side of the MG Comet EV that you realize the size of the front 2 doors. They are large, open wide, giving easy access to the front seats, and both the front seats flip forward and can be slid a little further forward to get easier access to the rear. Yet it is going to be a task for older passengers to get in and out of the rear seats. 2-door passenger door and the hatch, or the 3-door concept, is not entirely new to us. We've had Maruti's Zen carbon and steel 2 special edition cars which were 3 doors, and though they didn't sell in big numbers, the concept is not new. Side profile also sort of showcases the door mirrors, which are full size, offer a very good view of the side of the car while driving, and the blind spot is also not very large. The other feature of the MG Comet EV that strikes you is the 12-inch rims. These do look small. The impact of the 12-inch rims and the small tires are felt even more when you drive over rough patches. It's a pretty tight compact boot that you get with all 4 seats in use, but if you do fold both or one of the rear seats, you get more space. Both the seats are right now folded with a lot of our equipment and our backpack. What you get then is a decent amount of boot space with just the front 2 seats in use. I would say it still is just about enough for you to use to go from point A to point B within a city with some amount of luggage in it. I wouldn't say that it is perfect for a weekend drive unless we're talking just about 2 people going out on a weekend. It still is a fairly tall car, but what you do get is a very upright rear glass and of course with it is only 2 doors for the passengers, which then means that you do have to fold the seats to get in, and also the rear passengers don't get an openable window. It's just a sealed sort of large quarter glass. So that's the cabin of the MG Comet that we have gotten into, and this is pretty much going to be identical across the variants that have been offered to us today for the test drive. I'm guessing this is the top trim variant, fully loaded. There's going to be 3 trim levels that's going to be launched by the time it is officially out with its price announcement sometime in the next few weeks. This is the cabin that you're going to be getting, and this is simple, very sort of modern cabin. The materials used are not really, I wouldn't say they're upmarket. There's not a sense of it being bordering on premium, but the touch and feel is good, the finish is good, edges are matching, they are flush, and overall it's a simplistic cabin that still looks decent for a car in the affordable EV category. You get a sort of leatherette wrapped 2-spoke steering wheel with some controls right at the wheel. You get a 26-inch touchscreen, a dual screen infotainment, and sort of digital instrument cluster with all the driving parameters right there for you to be able to read, starting from SOC, state of charge, to the range available, to your current usage patterns and the current being used from the battery. The battery, of course, is located under the floor of the car. Fabric upholstery, of course, and the space gray and white theme looks nice, though I would worry about the white elements and how they would wear over time, and whether they would be dirty, over a period of time in terms of usage. It gets clean. Door trim also, in terms of its finish, plastic quality is still a little hard, but there are elements here that are soft touch, including some of those panels on the IP on the dashboard. Climate control with knobs still, which is definitely welcome. The touchscreen also offers wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and there is 40 other connected car features that you can use under the iSmart suite of MG's connected car tech. Now that's all in terms of the overall features that the cabin offers. The cabin itself, in terms of shoulder room, is quite narrow. So as you can see, the amount of shoulder room available for the driver and the co-passenger is not very much. There is not much in terms of space in the middle for an armrest or something like that, but you do get a flat floor, and you can easily switch from the driver's side to the passenger side if you are going to be parked very tight between 2 cars. Given the narrow track of the MG Comet, that's something that would probably happen pretty often. Similarly, the legroom at the rear is okay. I mean, it's decent for a 4-seater in this size class, but I wouldn't say it's generous. There's enough headroom, but what I did miss was the ability to lower my seat, which is not offered. There is manual adjustment possible for reclining the backrest, but you cannot put down the seat itself. But that said, the view of the road, the amount of visibility you get through this large windscreen, all of that is very good. So I would say, all in all, the cabin does feel nicely put together, but it's still not sort of like a premium hatch feel. You do get the perception that it's been built to a price, yet it is not, I wouldn't say it is tacky or overly plasticky that some of the hatches have, especially in the affordable ICE segment, have had in the past. A sort of square key that you can hold in your hand and perform multiple functions. Of course, it is a keyless entry system, so you could also use the small tiny button located next to the door handle to get entry into the car. One touch slide and recline passenger seat in the front row, which offers entry for rear seat passengers, is a feature that could be a problem for older passengers. Younger passengers should find it easier. Battery electric system comprises a permanent magnet synchronous motor that's mounted at the rear. It delivers a max power of about 42 PS and max torque of 110 Newton meters. The battery itself is also located right next under the floor of the compact MG Comet. So the 2-meter wheelbase sort of provides a platform for the battery pack, which is about 17.3 kilowatt hour. The battery can be charged in about 7 hours from 0 to 100% using the 3.3 kilo wall socket charging cable that's provided by MG along with the Comet. It should take about 5 hours, a little lesser if you were to be charging from about 10% to 80%, which is typically the ideal charging cycle that MG recommends also for ensuring longevity of the battery pack. The battery chemistry itself is a lithium ferrophosphate LFP battery pack, and there are prismatic cells inside the battery pack, and MG claims this should deliver a longer life. The range, of course, like I had mentioned before, is about 230 kilometers rated range. There was one problem though, where the distance to empty feature was showing up in my test mule, where any change in driving mode didn't lead to a change in expected driving range. Neither did it change when I switched off and switched on the air conditioner. Though others did say in their test mules this feature did change. The transmission is an automatic transmission. Car itself comes alive with just a double tap off the brake pedal, and then you just have to turn the rotary knob from neutral to drive or reverse for you to start moving. It doesn't have a crawl feature, so it just doesn't start moving unless you tap the throttle, and which could be potentially a safety feature in the Indian context, with a lot of people still coming to terms with automatics and with the whole EV ecosystem. The charging socket for MG Comet is a CCS2 type, so I'm sure finding a charging station with a compatible charging socket shouldn't be a difficult proposition. So that was the MG Comet that we drove through the day today, and it does feel compact on the road. There is a general feeling of you being sort of in a fairly tight, closed car. It is very quick for a car of this segment and of this size. Ratchets up to 85 in places, sections of the road where those speeds were allowed very easily, and it of course gets its 3 modes: eco, normal and sport. Sport being the quickest, and of course all of those differentiators only focused on the amount of power that gets delivered, and amount of power and torque that gets delivered only through the variation in throttle position. So fundamentally it does feel its size on the road. There is a bit of head bobbing, sort of body roll when you make quick corrections and you're like to, if you would like to make a quick overtake and you're going to switch lanes quickly, it does feel its size. That said, there is a lot of ability on that suspension, only limitation being its 12-inch rim size, where that small sort of tire and footprint sort of delivers a slightly harsher ride in places where the tarmac is broken, and of course you do feel that odd speed breaker a little more sort of pronounced while you're in the cabin because of that small footprint. But it still is pretty peppy to drive, easy to weave through traffic because of its narrow track, and it is fundamentally the limitations that come with electric in terms of pricing. I mean, MG surely hasn't announced the prices yet, but it's not going to be on a par with an ICE small car. There is going to be the sort of price disadvantage coming from the 17.3 kilowatt battery pack, which in itself will be more than half the price of this car, is my guess. But if we are going to be looking at an aggressive pricing, it would still be potentially twice what a current ICE small car costs in the sub 1000 cc category. Now that is very, very, very well sort of understood by MG, and MG says that their target audience is the younger buyer who is willing to experiment with an electric, who is eco-conscious, who doesn't mind the compact proportions that the MG Comet is being offered with, and of course doesn't quite need the doors for the rear seat passengers, because in all probability the owner is going to be self-driven, is going to be driving most of the time alone in the car, all of those factors. Now, if that is what it is going to be, I'm guessing it will be in the region of about 8 to 9 lakhs. There's going to be 3 trim variants. Some of the details about the trim strategy is still awaited, but that there is the MG Comet, and if you're interested, I think you should go to the nearest MG showroom and try it out.